today.
Thank you so much for having me too. I'm so honored to be here with you.
Of course. Likewise, I'm more honored, honey.
We can have a competition, but we only have an hour, so we'll pick this up later.
Yeah, definitely. So I know you a little bit, but not for too long. Yeah. But I definitely feel like I've known you so much longer than actually the time that we have met in this dimension.
Absolutely.
But please tell us a little bit more about who you are.
Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored and I'm so grateful to know the two of you. Amazing, amazing goddesses in this magical country I didn't know existed a year and a half ago called Estonia. A little bit about myself. I'm from the States. I grew up in New York mostly, but I've lived in 5 countries, including Estonia. I deeply value human connection, and I'm very curious about human connection and interpersonal dynamics. So I have a degree in psychology, and it's just like my passion, curiosity is just kind of people. And I had a really, I don't know, I guess rough is relative, but I had a difficult childhood that led to a lot of trauma and I guess difficulty having successful relationships and productive outcomes. And so I've dedicated a lot of time to try and figure out where that comes from and how to improve it so that I could have a good life and have good relationships. And I'm still on that path. But yeah, I've lived a few different lives. I modeled for many years and did the whole champagne red carpets and like private jets thing. I lived in the mountains of Peru by myself with like nothing and did plant medicine and like caves and all kinds of weird places for many years. And I worked corporate jobs and sales, just like making $1 million sales and all this stuff. And all that being said, I'm still trying to find my place, but I, at this point, feel like while I'm doing that, I can offer something to the world, and that's what I'm trying to consolidate at this point.
What's something you have recently learned or something new you have discovered?
I guess it's like one of those things that, those things that but yet you don't necessarily implement it in your life. Like, for example, love yourself, right? Mm-hmm. We all know we're supposed to love ourselves. How many times have we not done that, knowing, that we should? And so I think, one of the things that I'm still trying to learn is that home is in my heart, because I keep kind of like searching for like a certain place or a certain community. And I have ended up building a lot of communities in like a lot of different countries, which is really cool because I have friends all over the world, but just trying to find something that already exists in me and trying to not just know that, but live that is something that I'm still working on, I guess.
I can so relate to this because because I have lived in I never counted actually, but like in several countries. In the UK, in the States, in Italy, and like at some point you come to this realization that you are home for yourself. Mm-hmm. Like you will never find home somewhere else or in other countries. Like, but if you have home in yourself, you can be wherever, because it's always with us, actually. Yeah. Like, it's such a good point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something that I know, and it's also something that I forget.
Yeah.
So it's somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it's something maybe that you can't, like, magically have. It's just at some point, like, doing the conscious work, at some point you just, it happens. Yeah. But it's not like you can just, I wish this to be like that, and I just gonna make my fingers snap and it's gonna be like that. That's not how.
Vishen learned something. Vishen, for anybody who doesn't know, is the CEO of Mindvalley, and he learned something from Michael Beckwith, who everybody knows from The Secret. He's just amazing, and he talks about learning through wisdom and learning through suffering. And I'm just like, I have learned a lot, mostly through suffering. And I think one of the things that I'm trying to transform is how to learn from insight and wisdom instead of just, it's okay to make mistakes, but just learning from mistakes and learning from suffering. So trying to make that shift while still learning. The end result is great, but maybe it's not so necessary to suffer.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. But how come you're in Estonia now? What brought you here?
It's quite an unexpected story for me because I moved to Peru twice. It's kind of been like my magic land where I've wanted to settle down, and I tried twice and I wasn't able to twice, which really was a tough pill to swallow. But last year when COVID hit, I had moved. Well, before COVID hit, I had moved the year before last year to Peru. I had moved the Sacred Valley of Peru, which is like the Andes Mountains, really high elevation, just absolutely beautiful, magical, spiritual place. And I had moved all my stuff. I mean, I had kitchen stuff. I took with me like a juicer. You know how hard it is to travel with a juicer?
Yep.
You know, I mean, I was ready to just settle down. And then, the pandemic happened. And like many people around the world, everything just got turned upside down. I didn't have the income and the job that I had and the plans that I had of getting a home and doing all that. Everything just kind of went down. So I ended up having to fly back to the United States through the military, through like the embassy. And I took a 30-hour bus ride through the Andes Mountains, like just like weaving like this, for 30 hours at super high elevation. Sometimes you look over the window. There's no ground right there. And you're just like, go to sleep. But so I was living there, had to come back to the U.S. All my plans were just dissipated. And I thought, what am I going to do? I can't go back to the corporate life. Like I've done the corporate thing. I've been, through a lot of the pain and the toxicity that a lot of people in corporate environments, particularly women, endure. And I just couldn't imagine the fluorescent lights and the cubicles and the sexual harassment and just like all this stuff that is pretty rampant. And I just was in this kind of state of like, I think like victimhood a little bit, like, what am I going to do? Nothing. I don't know. And I just kind of laid back a little bit and was just flowing. And then all of a sudden, one of my friends, she's a like Playboy cover model, but she's a very spiritual person who's an amazing artist. And we were talking about ayahuasca and she said, you should meet Vishen. And I knew about Mindvalley since 2012, and I knew who Vishen was. And I was like, Vishen Lakiani? She's like, yeah, you guys would have a lot to talk about between the, he's really into altered states of consciousness and all this stuff. And so I said, I would love to meet him. So she connected us on Instagram. We had a phone call, and he suggested that I apply for a job with Mindvalley. And I thought, I could dig that. This feels like in alignment with kind of where I'm at. I would love to do that. And he said, but you'd have to move to Estonia. And I was like, okay. As I'm like Googling, as he's talking to me, what is Estonia? Like, where is Estonia? And, that's just a testament to the crappy geography in the American education. But, I looked it up a little bit, found out it was a progressive, clean place with lots of nature. And I just thought, let's do it. What else am I going to do? So I just hopped on a plane and went to a country I'd never heard of for a new job, and that was in January of this year, so it's been almost a full year. And it's been really interesting, and I'm so happy to be here, honestly, in Estonia. And
it's really interesting
like
because I think I met you a few months ago, and it really feels like you have been settling in here. It really feels like your place.
I mean, I can count to 10 in Estonian, so I have an Estonian ID. I have the transportation card. I feel pretty local. I mean, it's very hard not to enjoy this place, even with the brutal winter. It's just so beautiful, and people are just so nice. And I mean, I've been to South America and Central America and even Western Europe, and those parts of the world are a little bit more kind of like well-known and, I don't know, trendy, I guess you could say, in the U.S., but like Eastern Europe, it's like this mystery. What is Slovenia? What is Latvia? What is Estonia? What is going on there? All we know is that the most beautiful women in the world come from there. But aside from that, and so it's been really beautiful to just discover something I didn't even know existed, and just trying the foods and the music and the midsummer festivals and all the traditions here and meeting people like you. And it's been great, yeah.
Anyways, I'm super glad that life brought you here, because I'm so grateful that I met you. I think you're amazing soul, and this wouldn't happen if you wouldn't be here. Oh. And I'm so glad I have a person like you in my life right now.
Thank you so much.
But I want to go back to what you said earlier. How come, like, what happened when you were living this lifestyle, that you were a model, like you said, champagne, private planes. Like, how come you moved away from that? Like, was there something that was not satisfying for you, or this style of living is very, how do you say,
like attractive to
many people. So can you describe that period of your life a little bit?
Yeah, I think that the thing that's attractive about it is the fact that it's just a whole facade and illusion of success and power and what people are supposed to want to be, right? Like beauty and champagne and red carpets and all this stuff. But really, my 20s were, I mean, yes, I did some responsible things like graduate college and, work. But at the same time, I was just fully suppressing and numbing my pain in any way that I could. And so there was a lot of alcohol, there was a lot of partying, there was a lot of drugs, there was just a lot of numbing and detaching and disassociating. And so it's like on the surface, oh my gosh, I'm a model and I'm traveling and I'm doing all this stuff, but really I am shoving my pain down like a suitcase that you're putting your whole body weight on trying to close. You know what I mean? Just, and of course it wasn't conscious at the moment. I wasn't like, I'm just gonna numb myself. It's just, I guess, my coping and protection. And so, I know a lot of women who were very responsible and didn't do any drinking or anything, who were just models so that they could become a lawyer, and then they stopped. And so there's all kinds of people who become models, but for me, it was just a complete distraction. I mean, my phone was always blowing up. I never had to like sit with myself, just so busy, just working and doing all these things. And the reason I got out of it was because I got an offer in medical sales, which was a very, very special, hard to get job that is mostly male dominated, as opposed to pharmaceutical sales, which is mostly female dominated. And it was just such a good opportunity for me to make six figures, and not have to worry about, oh, I ate a pizza last night. Oh, I have a pimple on my face, which, by the way, I've been thrown out of a photo shoot for like one pimple, in front of everybody. Get out. How could you show up like that? So just the thought of being able to have a living without worrying about these variables. I took it. So I left modeling and I went into medical sales. And that was very lucrative. I mean, I had more money than I needed. And I also lived very simply. So I was making a lot of money, not spending a lot of money. And after 5 years of doing that, I had all this money. And like, I was so depressed. I was so depressed, not because of the money, but because I wasn't doing what I was meant to do. But I didn't know that at the time. And I was so confused. Like, this is what people want. I have money. I have a great apartment. I have great friends. I'm healthy. Like, why am I not happy? And of course, fast forward, I know why now. But before, it was just like there was this part of me that was screaming at me, but I couldn't hear the words. It just felt like dissatisfaction or like pain or disalignment, And I was learning through personal growth and things like that. Like, if you don't feel good, something needs to change. So I was like, okay, something needs to change. And so I quit my 6-figure job. And then that was the first time I moved to Peru, quit everything, left everything. People were like, you're quitting this job? Are you insane? Do you know how hard it is to get into this field? And I went to go live in the mountains and do ayahuasca. So that was my first trip to Peru.
I think the part where you mentioned the continuous asking why am I feeling like this? Why am I not happy? This is so important. Like, people, I think, sometimes forget to ask about it, and they feel the emotions, but they maybe are afraid of the answer and keep ignoring the question.
Yes.
So maybe like, what was the turning point for you? You kept asking why, but when you found the answer, what was the turning point to a different life?
Before I tell you exactly what it is, I will define it, because I don't want people to think that this is something that they have to do. But I discovered a tool that worked for me. This tool is a bit hardcore, but there are other tools like breath work, yoga. There's like so many different ways of reaching what I reached with this tool. Now, this tool is ayahuasca, which, for anybody who doesn't know, it's a psychoactive plant medicine found in the Amazon jungle that's been used for at least 5,000 years that we know. And it inspires so much in you. It's everything from trauma release to potentially physical healing, emotional healing, creativity, inspiration, all kinds of different things. And so when I started doing ayahuasca, which was in Peru, that's when I had like my biggest breakthroughs, because I had been to therapy. I hadn't done pharmaceutical drugs for mental health, but I had been therapists, psychologists, counselors. My mom stuck me in church for a while. I went to like Jesus camps and I don't know, just tried all these different things. And sometimes things would resonate for a little bit, but then I would always kind of go back to the same pattern and fall into the same thinking. And ayahuasca was really the biggest thing that caused the biggest change for me. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But how about would you say today? Like, have you found yourself? Do you still need it, or what's the relationship right now?
You know, it's interesting because being here in Estonia, obviously it's a new country to me. I don't have the same connections that I did in the States. So I went a while without doing it, and I was starting to ask myself, like, do I need it? Because I feel like I do. And when you say need something, like ayahuasca is not something anybody would ever do for fun. It's not like, oh, let's do ayahuasca and have a good time. It's not. It's super hard work, and it's not for the faint of heart. But you know, I do feel like almost like getting I don't know if this is a bit wrong, but like getting a facial every few months, or going to the doctor, getting your teeth cleaned, going to the gym every so often, just like anything, breath work, meditation. You don't just do it once or twice, right? Because then, I mean, you're not really going to get the result of anything. So I think in a sense it's a practice, right? Ayahuasca is like a practice, and some people do it once and they've got everything they need and they're like, I don't ever need to do it again. I feel so complete. And for me, you know, it's been well over 100 times, and I still feel like there's a lot to uncover and work through. But that really made a huge difference for me, because with therapy, with psychology, with breath work, with meditation, you have the ability to stop and exit. Like, this is too much. I don't want to do anymore. Stop. I don't want to keep. Like, you can always stop. But when you're doing ayahuasca, you can't stop. Like, you can't leave. You are going to go through this tunnel, whether you like it or not, whether it's running or crawling or somebody dragging you. And so on the other side of that is where I discovered a lot of things about myself and found healing and some answers and a way. It wasn't a solution, but it was a way forward, you know, that I didn't see before.
Yeah, I think it's super important to emphasize that it doesn't suit to every person. That's not what we're trying to say here. Yeah. That's exactly what you said, that there's so many other tools. Yeah. There are breathwork, there's meditation, there's even psychology, because it, like, I have experience. I've been to many therapists myself, right? Different therapists came in different times, and I think it's exactly when they had to be there, they were there. Yeah. So it's not. But and another aspect that I want to emphasize is that. What did you say? I lost my thought.
What did I say?
Oh no, you said about finding a way. That's what I wanted to say. That it's so important that. I think it's like that with everything, with any therapy or any tools that you're using for self-development. It's not like you go there for solutions. That's not how it works. Right. It's not like you go there once and your life is magically changed and some magic happens to you. I think this is like very important point, that you use those tools to support you, and they do show you some way, but they're not there for solutions.
Exactly. 100%. I mean, a hammer is a tool. It's not going to build the house for you. You have to use it. It's a tool. And you know, ayahuasca is not the only tool also, because if I do ayahuasca and then I go back to my old terrible habits and start doing the same things that I was doing, just having done the ayahuasca isn't going to change anything.
Exactly.
You know, it's like it gives you information that you then implement into the world, and the real ceremony is life. You know, it's not in the temple. it's like training for a marathon. The training is the ayahuasca, the marathon is life. You know, so definitely don't advise people to consider it as a solution or even a viable option for a lot of people. It's just inaccessible. It's illegal in most places. It is dangerous, especially for people who have heart problems or are on certain medications. So yeah, it's not like, oh, you're feeling down, go do some ayahuasca, you'll be fine. You know?
True that. I love your examples. I just love them. I wish we would have her all the time giving her analogies. That's
only
so
I spoke
funny.
Estonian. I would love to be like a little commentator.
In a few years, maybe.
Yeah.
My idea. Yeah. That's all I would say. My idea.
Oh my God,
but it isn't a
so
no,
cool.
it isn't a yes.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. So definitely a lot of, you know, like the pharmaceutical ads, not in any way, oh my gosh, comparing ayahuasca to pharmaceutical, but you know how they have like the tiny little words at the bottom. If you take this, be careful to blah, 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 blah. You know, it's like, it's similar with ayahuasca. Don't do this if you have any heart problems or if you don't want to break the law or if you know, whatever. So it's definitely a serious thing to consider and spend a lot of time.
Well, with ayahuasca, I think you really have to have a calling too. It's not something like you just go and do, like, you know, when it's time. That's what I have experienced. Well, I don't have so much experience with it though, but
some experience is a lot of experience though. Yeah, that was my desire, was to go live in Peru and just have like a medicine life. I didn't necessarily want to lead ceremonies because that's just an enormous responsibility that I don't take lightly, and I don't just offer myself for that, but I wanted to assist. I wanted to be a part of the community. I wanted to make that aspect of helping people my life, because I have been able to serve in some of the most profound, incredible ways in my life during ceremony, which is amazing because you're on this like super powerful psychoactive drug, but it's also like medicine, not drugs. Sorry, don't call it a drug, anybody. But yeah, like it's just activates like your true self. It just puts to the side the ego and all this crap, and all that's left is like your intuition, your deepest knowing, love. You hear things that aren't actual sounds. You know what I mean? You feel things. Like, it's just such a beautiful way to serve other people in their deepest, darkest moments of going through some of their most difficult trauma, like even reliving horrific events that they've been through in their life, and supporting someone through this as if it's actually happening in a way that, you know, can affect the rest of their life. I mean, that to me felt like what I was meant to do, but I was wrong. I wasn't meant to do that because I had to leave Peru. So yeah.
But where are you today? Do you know what's your purpose today? Have you found it?
You know, this has been such a tough question that actually the lack of having an answer has caused me in the past to go into such a deep depression. Like, I know there's just so many different kinds of people in this world. There's people who are just happy with their job. They can pay their bills. That's all they want. And they're happy. And I'm so glad that there are people like that, you know, and I'm happy that they're happy. And then there's, you know, people who can't fully express their being unless they are aligned with their purpose. And until they do that, it's like something is off, right? Like you mentioned something about that earlier. You know, you just weren't doing what you were meant to do. Things just didn't feel right. And it's not, anybody's not better than anybody else in any way. It's just we have different desires, capacities, and I have cried so much over, why am I here? What am I meant to do? I don't want to just work for somebody and sell some things or model something or push in buttons or something. Like, that just can't be it, you know? And I think I've been slowly starting to realize, and Mindvalley had a huge effect on this, because I've been connected with some great coaching certifications and stuff in Mindvalley. But I wanted to do this. That's why I got my psychology degree so many years ago. But I didn't realize at the time that this was my passion. I knew that I was very interested in it, but I always would say, like, I can't possibly be a therapist, you know, because I'm such an empathetic and sensitive person that I can't imagine sitting across from somebody like you and you telling me some horrific childhood experience that is unspeakable, and I'm just going to sit here while you're just breaking down, and I'm just going to hold my shit and I just feel like I would cry with you, and then at some point you'd be like, "It's okay, Jeannette." You know, like, it's okay. You know, wait, who's coaching who here? And so I always had this self-doubt, like I can't, because I just couldn't even handle my own pain. How could I handle anybody else's pain? How is that even possible? And over the years, I just held on to that belief. That's why I went into modeling. I went into medical sales, and I went into all these things. But ayahuasca actually was what showed me that I am strong and capable, because the things that I was able to not only work through myself, but help other people through, it just proved to me, like, you're not as weak as you think. You're stronger. Like, you look at what you just did. Look at what you just made it through. And you have a smile on your face now. Like, I would have never believed that I could accomplish some of those things and come through those dark tunnels unless I actually lived through it. And so I started gaining a little bit of confidence, like, oh man, I'm strong. Yeah, I'm strong, and not strong like physically, but just emotionally, you know. And then, of course, these coaching opportunities started popping up. And I didn't really know too much about coaching when I graduated from psychology. I just thought it was like psychologist, psychiatrist, therapist, mental health, you know, and none of those things really called out to me. But when I started learning about coaching, like, you can teach people how to be positive. You can teach people how to switch their perspective. You can teach people how to grow their business. You can teach people how to build better relationships. And I was like, wow, that sounds a little bit less heavy, I guess, you know, because I don't want to take on all that from everyone. I want to help, but how can I help if I can't hold it, you know? And so coaching, I'm just like, okay, I'm gonna do it, and it's kind of like a bridge between psychology and just being a caring, loving person who wants to help, who offers your shoulder, who's vulnerable, who's lived through a lot. And so I think I am coming to terms with my purpose, and that is coaching. I have a few little blocks to work through, but I feel like I've made it over the big hump, and I'm starting to realize that it is going in the right direction, because I'm gauging my emotional compass. It feels right. It feels good. I feel like I'm on the right path. And so I think that's my answer.
I'm so happy for you. And it's true. I just want to emphasize here that actually coaching is something that I believe every person needs. Like, no doubt. Like, I have had coaches for the past 5 years, like constantly. I believe it has elevated my life so much faster than if I would have done it alone. So I do believe in coaching, but I don't want to be biased here because I'm the coach myself, but I'm actually also studying to become a family therapist. So I do have both sides, and I'm a big believer in psychology. And actually these two can and should, in many cases, work side by side. They're very, they're connected. Not connected. Exactly. Yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And you're not biased. I mean, you know, I think, forget about the pandemic. Like, let's just go back 3 years before now. Even still, you know, people need just someone to talk to. And I'm not talking about your husband or your wife or your mother. I'm talking about somebody who doesn't have their opinions, who can actually actively listen in a way that isn't meant to just fix it or give you advice. Like, actually listening to a person is part of the goal of coaching, right? It's not like, oh, I'm going to fix your problems. And you'd be surprised how many people just want to be heard, just want to be seen, you know? And yeah, a lot of people need advice, and a lot of people need a perspective shift, which is simply guiding someone, right? You're not changing them, you're guiding them. And it is a little bit sad that, you know, it almost seems like mental health tools are available, not to everyone, not to most people, you know. And I think that is sad, because you're right, everybody should have a coach, and it should be subsidized globally. Because what a better world would it be if we could healthily, in a constructive way, blow off steam and get things off our chest, instead of taking it out on our kids, on our spouse, on the people that work for us, or the people who deliver our mail or our food, you know, because it's got to go, that energy has to go somewhere.
And I think coaching, for me personally, it has been the best tool to have this set time to really check in with myself. Like it just keeps me on track, because I'm high on self-development, I'm high on introspective anyways, but it's still helpful even for me. Like it never loses its place in life. Like, because we just, and another aspect that I wanted to bring in is that clearly I have, for example, you two as my best friends in my life, and I can come to you and talk to you and there's great advice. But like there's something about having this conversation with someone not close to you, someone you don't know. Even if she says the same thing or he, it still works. It's magic. I don't know what's about it. I can't put science behind it, but there's just is something about it.
Yeah. That is advanced communication right there. That is not something they teach you in school. This is the kind of thing that people should know, though, like solutions to how to manage conflict. And, you just said you don't know exactly what it is that makes it so appealing to have an unbiased coach. And I don't know what it is either, but I think a big part of it is there's nothing at stake except whatever you're paying the person. And maybe you'll have a disagreement and you'll both tell each other to fuck off or something, right? That's it. You're not losing a friend. You're not losing a spouse. You're not losing, and so I think it's a little almost safer because you can really say anything. They're supposed to be confidential. So when you tell a friend, they're supposed to be confidential, but not in a professional way. So there's also that risk of saying too much, which I don't know if either of you have overshared and then it's backfired in some way, when you thought you could trust somebody. So I think it's
definitely has happened in life,
right? And then you're like, I shouldn't tell friends things that they could use against me, but then they weren't really friends if they used it against me. But how would you know in the moment? So I think it's a little safe with a therapist or a coach. And I also think that there's just less to lose, if you end up somehow, I don't know, pissing them off or offending them or something.
Are you afraid of getting charged, or are you in trust with that?
I trust my friends a lot. The thing is that a lot of the things, well, I don't know, I guess this is personal and it might not apply to others, but a lot of the things that come up for me aren't new things, and they're things that my friends have heard, and my friends they've really been there for me. And I feel like sometimes I don't want to bother them. And they always say, it doesn't matter. You can call me whatever time. If you're feeling really bad, I love you. You can call me anytime. But there's just something inside me that doesn't want to bother my friend again about this thing we talked about a few months ago. And it's still coming up for me, and my friend has their life going on. They have things going on. They have children or they have and so there's been the last really, really scary, depressive episode that I had a while back was so dark and so scary. I couldn't call anybody that I knew. I was just, because I couldn't tell them what I was thinking, because if I did, they would freak out, and I just didn't want that. So the only person that I reached out to was actually my coach at the time. And I told her. And even though I've known friends for a decade and they're my best friends, I've lived with them, whatever, like I didn't feel comfortable calling my best friend to tell them what I was feeling and how scary it was. And my coach, who I had known for just a few months, was the person that I needed. I felt the most comfortable. I know this is her job. I know that she is going to hold the space for me. And that ended up working out, and she helped me through that. But that just goes to show, like, I have a lot of friends who could help me. I just couldn't call them. No way.
Yeah, I think I just wanted to say before, so I think it is intuition, because we feel like, and with people, like you said, there's just like, we just care about each other. And even if we can stay objective, because we are all like adults, we know that you make your own choices. I can hear you out, even though I don't want like this bad relationship, for example, for you. I'm still going to support you because I know it's your road. I just want you to open your heart to me, and I'm going to be there to support you no matter what happens, right? But you can feel it. There's like some intuition, because you know that your friends love you. And there is, first thing is this, but second thing is like, even when it comes from you, like you are saying, I think it comes also from your own fear of losing your friends, because there's so much more on stake. Because why it would be nice that you can call your best friend and tell them, but you yourself can be scared as well. It's scary, like, what will she think about me if I really tell her what I'm thinking?
Right. Absolutely true. And I don't ever want it to get to a point where a friend of mine sees my name on their phone and they're like, oh boy, maybe she's, I don't have the energy. Like, I don't even want to create that possibility. I want my friends to be like, oh my gosh, calling me from Estonia, what's up, girl? Not like, are you okay? And so yeah, I think that's a really good point that you brought up. But
even though, I just want to say here that all your sides are beautiful, and I love all of them. I just wish you can share all of them safely, at least with me. I hope you start doing it.
Thank you. Even with you, it's like, I know you're just the biggest heart ever. I mean, obviously, right? Like, just so kind, but even still, I'm like, no, she's busy.
Yeah,
she's got a lot going on. And I remember the other day we were going to meet for a tea and she was too busy. And obviously, if I tell you I'm having a crisis, maybe you would rearrange some things for me, but who wants that? I don't want, and
I do, honey. Yeah, because there are people, I was at that point myself in life. I know exactly how it feels, but actually there are people who do want to help. Like, it's another sort of power what you get from being there for people. It's a story that, like, is not letting yourself be completely free in this.
It's I think this part of me that doesn't want to bother people. That's
also human.
And anybody who I would think of calling are people that I love and who love me, and they would take my call, and they might even fly here or fly me home if I needed them or something. But it's so weird how powerful it is that I only want to present myself in a positive light and contribute something and help somebody, and I'll carry something for you and you can get on my back, but I don't want to give you anything to carry, and I don't want to bother you with anything, and that's a whole other process that I've worked through, is asking for help, which I would say I'm good at. But when it comes to certain things, like my shadow, my dark, deep shadow, and all this thing, that is the one aspect where I have trouble asking for help. Like, I would call both of you and say, hey, I'm moving this Saturday, can you help me move? Like, come over and pick up a bunch of boxes and sweat your ass off, and I'll give you a mimosa or something. But to ask you to hear me in my deepest sadness and hold me, now that seems like a huge inconvenience to me for some reason. And I can observe that there is something not in alignment with that perspective, right?
But you mentioned you're working with your shadow, like you said before about modeling, like you were suppressing so many emotions and so many sides of you. When did this work with your shadow begin, and was it like a realization that you have this shadow, and how did you process it?
Yeah, I had started hearing about shadow work before I did ayahuasca, but I really didn't take too much time with it, because a lot of the things that I attended were like weekend-long seminars, like Tony Robbins style kind of thing. Like, you can do it. You've got all the control in your life. But, they would talk about, the meanings that we give to events and attachment styles and all this stuff, but didn't really go... Shadow work is a pretty individual thing in a sense, right? Everybody has different shadows. And so when we were in these like group things, it's hard to do shadow work unless you're one-on-one or you're in a group of people who have like maybe similar things. But I think, and I hate to sound like a broken record, I feel like if ayahuasca was a company, people would think I was a lobbyist, but I'm not, and I'm not making any money for this. But it just threw me into hell in a way. And don't get me wrong, ayahuasca can be a beautiful, blissful, joyous, out of world experience, but there, when you have a lot of layers of trauma or pain to work through, it is hard, and you might get some really joyful, blissful times, but you're working through like the black tar of not only your history, but your mother's cellular memory and your ancestors and your society, and just it's a lot. And so I remember one ceremony actually specifically where I I looked in the mirror and I was wearing all black, which was the last time I ever wore all black to a ceremony. That's a mistake. But I wore all black and I was staring in the mirror and I was angry in that moment. And I looked in the mirror like, who is this ugly, angry, like witch almost? It was just like this dark side of me. And I worked through that for a few ceremonies. And I remember at one point, I felt like there was an aspect of me that was this like, I literally like saw it from like the corner of my eye, this side of me that's almost like this shy, scared, hunched over little version of me that's just like guilty and shamed in the corner, doesn't want to be seen. And there was this wise medicine woman who was helping me work through this because I kept resisting and being afraid of this part of me. It was like I was just trying to get it away. Like, that's not there, you know, I don't want this. And she helped me understand in the early stages of ayahuasca, this is a part of you. And this side of you that is guilty or feels shame or any of those things has a place next to you. And you can invite them into your space. And it was a weird thing when you hear it like that, but that was a part of myself that I was inviting to the space because that was a part of me that I was rejecting. And so when I said to this, you know, quote unquote, ugly, miserable, guilty, shell, homeless version of myself, and I said, you're welcome here. You have a space and you have a voice. It's like something inside me healed, you know, and I started to put less often reject and less often resist and deny the parts of myself that are my shadow. And so for anybody who isn't fully clear on what your shadow is, it's what you don't post on social media. I'm feeling fat today. I'm feeling insecure. I'm a loser. I'm always going to be alone. And this part about me isn't lovable and I'm not good at anything. Or it's just anything that basically you wouldn't put on a resume or social media. And making friends with that part creates a pathway to be able to work through that, right? So it's not getting rid or eliminating. It's just like transmuting, right? Like, hey, there's a side of me. Sometimes I can get really insecure, and that's okay.
Wow, I think it's wow. Like I got chills when you were talking.
Yeah,
like,
it's really, really powerful. I think this really shows the power of like acceptance as well, and accepting yourself, accepting your emotions, and being in control of yourself.
Yes, I wanna. Yeah. I think like I was listening to. I was like, are you getting there, or where are you getting with your talk? I was like thinking that it's so important when you were saying you saw yourself in the mirror. I was like, but you got there. It's like you have to accept that side. It's like I actually have to admit to myself that I only went through this shadow work recently because this is something, it's been very transformative for me in these later years right now. It was so hard for me to accept my shadow. But I would say that it's not always so easy to even recognize it because the person that you have become is like, you think you are this person, like you yourself are living in this illusion that this is me. Like you can't even see your shadow. It's like you can't,
because you are it.
You are exactly.
And then comes in the blame, like this is the way I'm supposed to be. This is the way I was built.
But it's like I just want to say that when people start looking for their shadow, it's not always very obvious to see. Like it might take so much longer to actually realize what is the part of you that you have been suppressing. For me, it's definitely anger. Like I couldn't accept the part of myself that was angry. Like I almost never got angry. None of my friends ever almost saw me angry. Like never. And it took me so long because I was so sure that I'm just not an angry person. I was like, it's just not part of me. Anger just doesn't exist inside of me, right?
But was this something that got to you through coaching, or was this something you started to learn yourself?
I think it was a mixture of all the different tools and different coaches and mentors and practices that I've done. I'm
just thinking, if someone is listening to it right now, what should the person do?
That's a very good question, dear. But like it's a road. If I start talking now, it would take another hour. So we can make another episode on it.
Okay, shadow work episode.
Yeah.
Coming.
Well, I could actually touch on what you were just saying, is that, you know, you were talking about like it took you a while to even identify and realize this part of yourself. I think one of the first books that really taught me about this topic of being the observer was an Eckhart Tolle book. And I think the first, he put out The Power of Now before A New Earth. And The Power of Now was just like obviously all about presence and stuff, but he really goes into the observer. And so there is this flip that happens, I think, in many people's consciousness when the moment they realize they can observe themselves, right? Because there's like this, like, I'm living, this is my body. Oh, I'm sad. I am depressed. I am guilty. I'm a piece of shit, whatever, right? But then when you start to realize those are thoughts, that isn't you. And just because you feel something doesn't mean that that is you, and you have to identify with it. And then you start to watch yourself. Like if you sit there and you're like looking, for example, something that many people, I know it's pretty basic, but like you look in the mirror and you're like, oh, I look like shit. And then your old version is like, I look like shit. I am shit. Your new version is like, what a stupid thing to say, you know? And you say that to yourself,
Exactly.
like in your head, you're like, I look like shit. Oh, that's ridiculous. You look great. Come on, don't be so hard on yourself. And it might sound to some like multiple personality disorder, but actually it is you stepping outside of your ego identification and your higher self observing what is happening. So sometimes I'm literally full on depressed. I can't get out of bed. And I'm observing myself, you know, it's like I am depressed in the moment, but it's something that is happening. It's not me. And it will pass, and I'm observing it, and I'm aware, versus how I used to be when I was much younger, which was just like, I am dead. I am depressed. I hate my life. I should end it, you know? And now it's like, this is something that's coming through for some reason, and it's either going to teach me something or it's going to help me shift something. But I think the key, and I by no means am an expert on this, is the ability to observe your thoughts, emotions, and feelings, and the ability to detach from identifying from things that are not you. You know, like people identify with their job, their title, being a parent, being a husband, being rich. Anything in your life that can be taken away is not who you are. If your whole family, you know, leaves you and goes to another country, you're not a father. Well, you're a father, but you're not a husband anymore. Well, what happened to that identity? You lose your job. You're not this powerful businessman anymore. And that's why I think so many people fall apart, is because they identify with these things that are fleeting. You know? And so the question is, what can not be taken away from me ever? And that is who you are, you know? So I think that's a, I guess, helpful way to touch the subject of shadow work a little bit.
But I would say there's a fine line. I think we have to make another episode on this, because it's gonna take another 2 hours, maybe even.
We're gonna take over the entire series of podcasts.
Exactly.
For a few days.
I think our listeners would be happy, because like I'm so entertained by you. It's crazy.
Really do.
But like I think there's very delicate topics here, because on some extent I believe that we have to accept all parts of ourselves. So yeah, not maybe to identify, but just for the sake of clarity. It's like what we spoke. It's like, even if you are depressed, accepting it or seeing it and really, accepting it is the right word, is actually helpful. Not like disassociating from it or escaping from it. It's always helpful to accept it. But then if you can be an observer and understand that it will pass, like normally if you're already in the state of accepting it, you can normally deal with it a bit better. So it actually passes like sooner. And another aspect is that I feel that it's not like we as people, I used to do that. We want to identify with like few things. It's like, this is me. But what I believe today is that like I'm so many things. Like it's still me. All of those roles, all of those emotions, all of those things that I do, it's all me actually. But there's a fine line. Like, I see what you mean with not identifying with that.
Yeah.
But like, on another aspect, it's also helpful to understand that you're not just one thing, or you're not just a mom, or you're not just a businesswoman, or I'm not just a coach. I'm like so much more. Yeah, exactly.
And when many people think or come to a depressing point in their life where they feel like they're nothing at all, then you still are so many things. Actually, you are a father, you are a son, you are someone who's loved. So then these identifications are very helpful.
Yeah. But what about those people who have nothing? They have no family, they have no job, they have nothing tangible to identify themselves with, you know, by the standard of society of, you know, she's somebody's mother, or he's the CEO, or this and that. If a person has nothing, who are they?
Yeah, that's what I see. Like, I understand exactly where you're going with this, and it's a very deep topic. Because at the end, if you take away all the layers, what are we? We are our souls, actually.
I am, right?
Yeah, it is. Like, we are all one. We're part of the very big one, enormous energy, right? But I feel it's very spiritual talk, and that's why I wanted to be a bit more delicate about this topic right now, because like. Yes, I think it needs
a little bit of an introduction. A bit more.
Exactly. A bit careful handling.
Of course.
I understand you totally. Like, I understand where you're coming from. I understand what you're saying, and eventually, I totally agree with you. Like, I believe
this is an exploration. I don't have answers for anything. I'm not an expert, and I'm still exploring.
And even if we have this knowledge, even if we know these things, we're still living in this earth, on this dimension. Like, we still have to take the best out of what we have here right now.
Exactly.
Right?
We're still here.
Who knows where else we are?
Yeah, exactly.
Anyways, I think we already have been talking for an hour. Maybe we should go to our
I cannot believe an hour has passed.
An hour has passed.
Are you serious?
But coming to today's topic, which is about relationships and what do women want, what do men want, what anyone wants from a relationship, we have been gathering some questions. And one of the questions was, what do you think is the main difference between men and women?
Oh, you know, that's such a loaded question. I think it deserves a preface, which I would specify in, I guess, the words of David Data, the masculine energy and the feminine energy, right? Because nowadays, man and woman doesn't really mean much anymore, I guess. And so I would say for a masculine energy in a relationship and a feminine energy, I based on my experience and the limited research that I've done over the years, there are some differences in most cases, and it can vary with age, culture, a lot of things. But I mean, I guess the bottom line is I don't know, but from my experience, it's this path for a feminine woman to want to be seen, heard, respected, and admired, but also to be held and supported, and to have a masculine in a leading kind of role. And I know that might sound like really traditional, and this is something that me and Lacey have kind of talked about lately, you know, because it's just like, what do women want, and what do men expect, and what do women expect? And I can't really speak for men, honestly. I haven't studied it enough to speak on their behalf, but as far as me, I just want to personally be seen as an equal, but also feel like I am a leaf on an oak tree, and that I can blow with the wind, and I can flow, and I can be my feminine self, and I can have my emotions, and that I am being supported by a grounded masculine energy who also has his ebbs and flows and ups and downs. By no means do I expect a man to be perfect, but just I think I think women have become so strong and independent, particularly since the 60s, the 1960s, that a lot of the roles have been reversed. And I'm so happy that women can reach the levels that they are now. But I think a lot of what's been lost has a direct effect on romantic relationships and courtship between a masculine energy and a feminine energy. So that's something I am currently navigating and reading and doing courses and talking to people and studying, because I want to understand it also, including what I want personally.
Yeah, I totally agree. I love this masculine feminine energy that you brought in right now. And I'm a big believer that we have, all our humans, we have both sides in us, ourselves. Me as a woman, I have a feminine energy and the masculine energy. But when it comes to a relationship, the question is like, how does this dynamic work? Yeah. Like, where do I bring out my feminine and where do I use my masculine? Yeah. And same goes for the men. And I think you put it very nicely, how actually as a woman in a relationship dynamic, it's we want to feel feminine. We want to bring out the feminine side. Yeah. Maybe at work we need a bit more the masculine side. Yeah,
exactly. Absolutely.
Or maybe sometimes we need masculine also in a relationship. Yeah. But for the dynamics to work better, for me personally as well, I want to be more in my feminine next to my man.
Absolutely.
So, and the masculine is about creating the safety. So yeah. What are some major turn-offs?
Okay. Well, I guess again this is personal, but at the same time I feel like this is something a lot of people can relate to. So I will share with you some things that came to mind recently that I find as a turn off. Some of these things are related to the 4 agreements, right? A couple of these things. One of them is just honoring your word. Like if someone in general, right? It doesn't have to be a man. Like a man has more responsibility to honor his word, but I'm speaking as a feminine energy about in a relationship. So if a man says he's going to do something and then he doesn't do it for a non-legitimate reason, that makes me lose trust and faith in that person. So that's a big one for me. Another one is being defensive or taking things personally when things come up for me. Like if somebody does something that triggers me and I'm trying to share that with them, but then they take it personally, they're not understanding me. They're not helping me work through it, and they're not coming to a solution in how in the future we can avoid this pitfall. So I think taking things personally is super annoying, and that's something that I used to do really, really bad. And then after I read the 4 agreements, I started working on it, and I've gotten a lot better about it. It happens still, especially with close relationships, but it's something to be aware of, and that's a big turnoff for me. Another big turnoff is passiveness in men. Like if I'm with someone and he's not proactive, he's not a doer, he doesn't lead, he's not a concise decision maker. He's always like, I don't know, what are we going to eat? What are we going to watch? What are we going to do? What should we do? What should we move first? It's just like always asking me what to do. That gets a little annoying. And sometimes I'm just like, you decide, like, so passiveness is a little bit, I guess, a turn off. Lack of self-control is a huge one for me, whether it comes to a man's temper or substances or sex or whatever. Like if a man doesn't have a person, right? I hate to say man, but I'm speaking as a feminine woman. If a man doesn't have control over his temptations, his impulses, his desires, his temper, that's a huge turnoff, because I want a strong masculine man who can protect me, but I don't want some guy who's going to get into a fight at a bar because some guy looked at me. You know what I mean? And I don't want some guy who I have to help carry home because he's drinking too much. And I don't want some guy who has a hard time keeping his private thing in his pants because there's just temptation around, I think that's so unevolved, and it's a super, super turn off. Yeah, so that's the short list.
I just listened to you. I'm like, you have such an amazing, glorious feminine energy, girl.
Oh, thank you.
It's amazing. You're coming from a deep feminine place right now, like real vulnerable things you shared here. It's beautiful. It's beautiful. And all the things you mentioned, actually, if you turn it around, it is like you just want to feel safe.
Yeah. Yes. And trust completely. 100%. Reliability, groundedness, hold the space.
So beautiful.
Be the oak tree.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can just fly.
Yeah.
Be at ease. But that's what men want, actually, in women.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's an interesting thing. We won't go too off topic, but there's something I've been experimenting and exploring, which is what are the things in a person that you can change that involve growth, and what are the things that are inherent in a person, their values that you can't change. Because, they say in relationships, you shouldn't meet someone and make them a project and want to change them. But then, of course, you want to grow, you want to evolve, you want to be better. So where's the line between wanting to change somebody and just simply wanting to grow together? And that little gray area is something I'm exploring.
So interesting. I would love to ask another question on this topic, but let's go on to the turn-ons.
You got me so curious.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, turn-ons. I would say the embodiment of a conscious alpha, right? Because conscious is one thing and alpha is another. Alpha can be a guy who is like, make me a sandwich and get in the kitchen, or he can be some guy who's just always getting in fights. He's the big, scary, strong guy. That is not
the bad boy.
Exactly, right? Just like a ticking time bomb, perhaps. And nobody wants a Tasmanian devil in their living room, right? So the conscious alpha is just like this man who has power, but he doesn't use it meaninglessly. Right? It's like the definition between power and force, which there's a really great book called Power versus Force. And, just think about it. Force is I'm pushing you, and power is I'm influencing you to move without force. And so I think a powerful man who's a conscious alpha, he is strong, but he's gentle. He can pick up a little delicate thing, but he could also crush it, but he knows his power. So conscious alpha to me is just such a turn on. And I know it's a bit of a dichotomy in a sense, because you've got the bad boy and then you've got the nice guy. I'm talking about like the hybrid, which I've met hybrids, like they exist. They're out there.
Yeah, they do. And I think I just finished recently a course on feminine masculine energies, and Lorin puts it so beautifully. He says, I'm not sure I'm quoting him exactly right now, but the point is that we actually want men to lead, right? And men are supposed to be powerful and stay in their power, but not to dominate.
Yes.
Like you use your power, but you use your power to provide safety, to provide a calmness, to use the power for care, actually, even, but not to dominate. Exactly. Conscious power, and the power can come from a very good place. If it comes from a place of dominance and wanting to dominate whatever situation or person, then it comes from your shadow, and that's not what you are describing.
Exactly. And unfortunately, that's the origin of a lot of abuse and suffering in the world.
Exactly.
Is the force that these strong men, who might be alphas but they're not conscious alphas, they're using. And so that's a turn off. But the conscious alpha is a big turn on for me. Leadership, I think I alluded to that already. That's the opposite of passiveness. It's the doer. It's the man who takes chances, the man of action. I think that's really sexy. Not like, go buy a house and don't tell me. That's not what I'm talking about, right? I'm saying like the door's broken. You see it's broken, fix it. You see there's trash, do it. You see that I'm sad, come ask me if I'm okay. Like take the chance and hold, just don't wait for the invitation only. Another thing is just the entire definition of integrity is such a turn on. Like I said earlier, my turn off is a man who can't commit to his word, a man who sticks by his word, a man who works with honesty, who is going to a bachelor party with strippers, but he has integrity. You're not worried. A man who has integrity at his job. He has integrity when he speaks to a waiter at a restaurant. He has integrity if the cashier gave him too much money at the register. It's just doing the honorable thing, assuming that karma is real, even when no one's looking. And especially when it comes to your partner, Like, oh my gosh. Another huge turn on for me is when a man protects your honor. So like if anybody says anything about you or treats you in a way that's not very nice, not that he's like, hey man, don't talk to my woman like that, but in a way there is some sort of protection, whether it's just a kind way of refuting what the other person said. You don't have to be aggressive or violent or angry to protect your woman's honor necessarily, you know, but just someone who, you know, sticks up for you, you know, and when you're there or when you're not there. I think that's so hot. That really is hot, to the point where if a man doesn't do that for me in a situation, that might be so bad that it's hard to move from that. But the desire to learn and grow is huge. Like I've met people who are like, I don't need to read books. I don't need to do courses. I don't need to do ayahuasca. I'm fine. Like I'm good. Okay, good for you. I'm happy that you're happy, but that's not what I want. There is no arrival to evolution. It's a constant process, maybe till the day we die. And so a man who is constantly trying to be better, grow, learn, grow his business, become more emotionally available, have a better relationship with his mother, you know, whatever it is, like, I think that's so sexy. I love an open mind. I love patient men. If a guy loses his temper, if I'm, you know, moody, it's like, it's really annoying because I used to think that I'm supposed to just be happy and good all the time, but the truth is I'm not. Sometimes I'm in a bad mood. Sometimes I'm in physical pain. I don't want to make it an excuse for being a woman, but as a woman, we're just more emotional and sensitive, and society has taught us it's okay to express all those emotions, unlike men. And I think that sucks for men, but you know, it is what it is. And so for a man to be patient with that, hold space, going back to not taking things personally, I think that's so hot. It's like, I love it when I don't love this, but I love when you say something rude or mean to your partner and they're so grounded, they don't react. And then as the conscious female, I come back and I say, I'm sorry for talking to you the way that I did before. I was just really moody and I love you and let's have sex, whatever, you know, like,
yeah. Wow, girl, I'm just getting turned on myself just hearing you.
Girl. Let's end this and go have some wine. No, but yeah, I find that so hot because it's not that, yeah, of course I'd love to be perfect and never be triggered and never be emotionally unstable, but at least to have the space where the man is grounded and I can reflect, learn, and come back and be accountable for myself and apologize. And then if that doesn't happen, then the guy can be like, you know, yesterday you were a little rude with me and, you know, whatever, fine, you can bring that up. But just giving me the space to learn. Oh, I love that. I love that. Sexual IQ. Okay. Need I say more? Okay, the podcast is over. Bye. No. Sexual IQ. Like, men have penises, women have vaginas. The penis goes in the vagina. That is not the end of the story. Okay, there is so much.
Oh, it's not
more.
Damn it.
Oh my god. It's like, you know, in the 5 love languages, there's this one story about this woman who, you know, doesn't feel loved by her husband, and her husband doesn't feel loved by her, and he's mad because he wants to make love to her at night, and she's mad because he wants to make love to her at night, but he doesn't give her any affection during the day. There is no intimacy. It's like he just goes about his life and then he just wants to come on in and have sex, and she's like, no, even though she wants sex too. She wants intimacy. And so just those, like, planting the seeds throughout, not just the day, but the days, the weeks, you know, it's like, I'm not even expecting sex, but I just want to make out with you because you're so beautiful and I hope you have a great day. Or I saw that you needed to get your inspection in your car, so I did it for you. That is sexy. That will make me horny. Yeah. You know, and it's just these, like, planting the little seeds and a little touch and just doing these kind things. That is what gets the nighttime oven hot and ready, not just blasting in it, like, you know. Anyway,
what's your love language?
Oh my gosh, acts of service, I think, is my biggest one.
Yes,
quality
comes true.
Yeah. Quality time and physical touch, and then words of affirmation, and then gifts. The thing I love about gifts is the thoughtfulness, like just knowing someone was thinking about me. I really love that. And the acts of service is a big thing for me. You know, and it's like reading this book, like I want to figure out, and we won't go into it now, but like, why is it a big thing for me? Where does that come from? You know, and it's just like layers and layers. But what's your love languages? Just tell me.
For me, it has changed. It's funny you brought it up because we were just filming a podcast yesterday.
Talking about the same topic,
Same topic came up, And I already mentioned it, but like for me, it has changed over years, like tremendously. I used to have touch as like one of the last ones, but recently for few years, touch is my first one. Touch and then quality time is the second.
Yeah.
For me, it's definitely words of affirmation and quality time. And it's interesting because I've noticed that my partner has the same love languages. So we're feeding each other the same type of energy.
Oh my God,
that's
telling
so
each other beautiful things. Yes, it
You're
is.
so lucky.
Yeah.
That is like winning the lottery in a sense, you know? Because trying to speak somebody else's love language while having your own is like learning another language.
Yeah,
you
it
know?
is.
Like
Exactly.
The other day, my partner, I had an office chair delivered, and he went and picked it up and put the box downstairs, and I just left it there because I was like, I can't deal with that box right now. I don't even want to look at that box. And then later on, he just brought me the chair. He put it together. I didn't even ask him. And that was just like, oh my God, thank you so much. Like that was sexy.
That was a turn on.
The thought of putting together a chair, I'm sorry to sound like whatever, but it sounds like shit to me. I would rather clean a toilet. I would rather plow the street from the snow. Like I just don't want to, you know. So those little things, learning someone's love languages can get you what you want.
Yeah.
Sex. Anyway,
Any other turn-ons?
Yeah, let's see. I think that was pretty much it. Being emotionally available was a big one for me. For obvious reasons, I don't even think we need to go into that, right? Because especially a lot of like alpha, more masculine men, it's like some of the traits that we want, the more are inversely correlated with some of the other traits we want. So we want a masculine male, but we also want vulnerability and emotional availability, which are feminine traits. So it's
for me, I have difficulty. I don't have difficulty with it anymore because actually nowadays I'm connecting with a lot of men who are extremely masculine and they have this conscious, I would say that they are so much more emotionally vulnerable than any other men I have met before. And they are so much more masculine than any other men that I have met before. So I wouldn't say they are the opposites. Like actually being emotionally vulnerable and conscious in your emotions gives you this ability to be present, to handle the emotions, to hold the space for the feminine when it's needed. And this what actually makes the masculine powerful. So I wouldn't say they are the opposites, but like I see where you're coming from. Like that's the idea like that I also used to have, but they're not.
Yeah, I think it's branching off into the regular kind of well-known alpha versus like the conscious alpha.
Exactly.
You know? The guy who's telling you to make a sandwich and get in the kitchen isn't going to open his heart to you.
Exactly.
But if you have a conscious alpha, then it is possible to have both. And that's what we're moving towards in this world, not just for men, but for women.
Definitely.
But women have had such a strong movement of personal growth and sisterhood and women's circles. Men have been, unfortunately, behind because of society and conditioning and all the, men should be this and that. But now they're starting, not now, but like in recent history, men's circles and all these kinds of things where they're being taught is happening. So
it is.
Yeah,
they are really leveling up.
Yeah.
Really are. I'm very proud of our men. Yes.
We are rooting for it.
Yay.
Yeah.
So moving on to our next question. Do you think friendship is possible between men and women?
100%. 100%. I have male friends that I've slept with in the same bed, that I've lived with, that we have never had a sexual encounter. Now, that's not to say that if I told them one day, like, hey, I've been thinking about it and I'd like to take things to the next level, I don't know that they would all say no. Like, I think maybe some of them would be like, well, shit, I don't know where that came from, but okay, so I'm not saying that that's not possible, that they would maybe somewhere in their mind want more, but I think, it is absolutely, absolutely possible to have really good friends of the opposite sex. Yeah. Of course, there are friends who want more than they're telling you and they have ulterior motives. That's always a thing. But absolutely. Yeah. And I think people should have friends of the opposite sex. Of course, if you're in a very controlling, difficult relationship and that's not possible, then I don't know, that's another thing. But I think it's really healthy. And one of the things that has hurt me the most, not personally, but kind of hurt my female soul, is when I hear women say, like, and I used to say this when I was much younger, like, oh, I don't hang out with women. I only have guy friends. I don't trust women. And this is women saying this, you know, and I'm just like, oh, that is fucking the result of society right there, pitting women against each other to believe that we're competing for men and that we can't trust each other and that we're petty and all this stuff when our power lies within each other. You know, like one of the strongest predictors of a woman living a long, healthy life is strong bonds with other women. Science. You know, like,
I didn't know that.
Yeah,
that's interesting.
It's one of the predictors.
Oh, I'm gonna live very long then.
Yes, you are. You're immortal, girl. Yeah.
Okay, the last question we had. Do you think men should make the first move? Or who should even make the first move?
You know, it's not a full. Oh God, I'm so complicated. I should just give you like yes or no answers, but they're never yes or no. I think, you know. So, okay, Matthew Hussey did a video a few years ago because I used to be one of those women that would be like, if a man doesn't have the guts to come up to me, then he ain't man enough. You know what I mean? This kind of attitude. But Matthew Hussey said something and I realized, holy shit, this guy knows what he's talking about because he's spot on. He said, most of the time, the men that will approach you confidently are narcissistic and they're actually not possessing the qualities that you're looking for in a long-term relationship. They think they're the shit. They don't care if you're in the middle of a workout. They're going to interrupt you because they want your ass. You know what I mean? And so that again is a hypermasculine trait, right? That women like in the alpha masculine, but it also is correlated with other things like impulse control, you know, stuff like that. So Matthew Hussey was saying that guy in the gym who's kind of looking at you but not walking over to you is actually a guy who's respectful because you're working out and he doesn't want to interrupt you. So in other words, he was inviting the women to give a little bit more signals, you know, and ultimately maybe the guy is too shy and that doesn't mean that he's not a viable, great partner. So my opinion on this has changed a lot. I like a confident man and I like masculine men. But at the same time, I have approached men a few times in my life. I don't prefer it. So, yeah, would I want some, like, narcissistic asshole to come up and talk to me? No. But after I saw that video from Matthew Hussey, whenever I would see a cute guy kind of looking at me, I wouldn't think, oh, he's too shy and weak. He's not man enough. I don't see it that way anymore. And then I kind of put a little bit more out there. Maybe I look at him a little bit more, and I've even like left my number like with them as I'm walking out of a restaurant or something. And yeah, just exploring that.
Great knowledge. Thank you, Matthew. Thank you for doing your work. Yeah. It's amazing. I love him.
Thank you. Yeah. He's really awesome. I like what he has to say. And Esther Perel. I mean, there's just a lot of people.
Thank you for bringing him up, and thank you for sharing this knowledge. Like, it's amazing.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so honored.
It was amazing to talk with you. And as we have understood all, we have many episodes to record now. So many different topics came up. We're going to live in this room and just record for a few days.
I'm going to bring a sleeping bag.
Yes.
Let's do that. But thank you, love, for coming.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you both. Beautiful goddesses. Congratulations on all the wonderful events that are unfolding and manifesting in your life. I'm just so happy to be a small part of your big picture. So thank you.
Thank you so much.
You,